for October 15th, which is the deadline to apply. They haven't changed that, have they, Sharon?
They haven't really set.
Yeah, they haven't set. Right now, the tentative date is October 15th. So a little later on, we'll put that question to a vote. And tonight's, in just a moment or two, Gretchen's going to walk us through the presentation that she and some other people prepared called Living Together in Faith. And it's an excellent presentation, and I think it will answer a lot of questions, both for our members and for our neighbors who live on either side of us. So, and I'm very grateful for the interest that our neighbors have in this project. So, with that, I'd like to begin with just a brief word of prayer. Dear Father, thank you for bringing your people together here this evening to consider what might be possible with the land that you have blessed us with. Continue to bless us by granting us with the wisdom, compassion, faith, and love, and open our hearts and our minds to your will, that we may make the best decision we can this evening, and that all that we say and do here this evening is pleasing to you and honors you. I ask this of you in Jesus' name. Amen. So with that, Gretchen, I'll put my mask back on and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, and again, thank you for coming. Thank you for those who are online participating as well. My name is Gretchen Crum, and I've been serving on the development committee here for about the last year, where we have really been searching for a suitable direction for the development of our property. And that was really spurred by a charrette that Jeff and I hosted in November of last year to really assess what the church saw as development needs on our property for our church mission, as well as what were the priorities for development beyond our own needs. And Jeff and I have history of having us well done the master plan with the church years ago before we ever built and moved here. So we knew some of those initial priorities and suggestions that had been made, and those were mostly in the realm of senior housing at that time, but always focused on meeting what the community need at that time was. And at that time it felt like assisted living, senior housing was a community need. Some further development and discussions and time passing since then has made it less clear what that high priority need is for the community. There's been a lot of development of assisted living, including one right off the corner of our property here, as well as other places in town. And again, the committee realized that we were not developers here at the church. We don't have the expertise, nor the skills, nor the capital to see something like that happen. And so we started reaching out for an appropriate partner. And at first we were looking for a partner. We hit the jackpot. I'm going to have Jerry give a little summary of where our discussions with St. John's Ministries began and are still ongoing, so that you understand what happened there, because most of you are familiar that we have been in discussions with them. So I'll bring Jerry up.
Thank you, Gretchen. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you all here. And it's kind of a turning point for all of us here that finally, after about 17 years, we've come to a point where we're ready to make decisions about the ministries going forward and the future that holds for all of us. When we first began back in the early 2000s, and we put together and Gretchen used the word charrette, a word that Mosaic architecture brought to the church. But since what it really simply is a strategic plan for your campus. And the initial campus plan included a retirement center and maybe an assisted living facility. And that was in the initial plan that was sent to the city and was approved by the city in our plat development. But as the years went by, it became apparent that Helena was developing a lot of retirement facilities as well as assisted living facilities. And here we are in 2020, where there really isn't much of a need for any further retirement facilities at this time or assisted living facilities. At that point then, the church, being in a dynamic group, said, well, what is the community need? If we're going to do residential, which was in our initial plan, what are the residential needs? And that's when our journey crossed trails with the City of Helena and Habitat for Humanity and for the YWCA. And it was kind of like it was meant to be, that we all came together this year and found, we could be partners in this development. So St. John's United, who is who we were talking about in terms of building a retirement facility, an assisted living facility, we spoke with them, and one of their requirements, and it wasn't an unusual requirement or one that we hadn't heard before, was that they needed to have the land donated. And that just didn't work for us, not at this time. We have a debt that we need to mitigate, and this is an opportunity to do that and still meet a community need. And so St. John said, well, if you need us sometime in the future, let us know. And so that's why there's no longer any planning development with St. John's United in Billings to build a facility, because we have determined now there isn't a need for those particular facilities. Gretchen?
So I think next I'm going to be calling up Arnie here to talk about how this aligns with the overall church mission, but I have to give Jerry tribute for our new motto here. We've been through this building together in faith, moving together in faith, and so I ask you tonight to consider how we might bear to fruition this living together in faith as a community here. And I'm not able to move the slide. I trust Jackie's got it covered eventually. You name the tune. There was hope and promise. That's what we need. Well, just to give you a little introduction to what we're going to do tonight, and I'll wait till we have the slides, but Arnie's going to talk about how this relates to our overall church mission. I'm going to give a brief introduction to each of our partners. Some of them will speak, and some of them I'll just kind of tell you about. We do have a video from each partner, which is helpful as a way of introduction, and kind of lay out what currently looks like the vision. And again, I would preface that there are a lot of unknowns. I'm going to tell you what this looks like right now, but all we're asking you to engage in at this point in a positive step forward is to engage in the process. Again, this is an application for a planning grant. We are not guaranteed to get the planning grant, but the first step is to apply. And I think all of these partners have expressed that the vision shared here, and especially when there is community partnership involved, looks very positive. And it's something that a granting entity, we hope, sees great vision and purpose in. Should I try this again? Okay. Well, Arnie, do you want to come up and talk a little bit about the missional connection here without slide support?
Not recalling what's on that slide. Pardon me? 17 years ago, when this property was purchased, this congregation began the process of deciding how is it that we serve the gospel? How is it that we tell the story of God's love in Jesus Christ, and how is it that that helps us to reach out into the community and world in which we live? And so this is just a continuation of that dream. Along the way, we've picked up new partners, new friends, and seen our world change in some dramatic ways. And so the hope is that now we can figure out ways that serve the needs of the community in a way that, in a long-term sense, continues to serve our missional goals as a congregation. We think that we have found some partners that understand those missional goals, understand the need for us to fit into this community and to serve Helena in some significant ways with this great gift of land that we've been given.
Well, without slide, I will first talk about Rocky Mountain Development Council. Their housing director is unable to be here with us tonight, but Liz Mogstad runs their housing component. Now, Rocky Mountain Development Council does a lot of things, and I will fail to mention them all. But they have a lot of senior services. They obviously run the neighborhood center and have senior services there, senior meals, Meals on Wheels, and those kinds of things. They also do low-income energy assistance programs. They do weatherization in people's homes to keep them in their homes and keep them affordable, help them out with heat bills and things like that. They also run the Head Start preschool program out of the neighborhood center. So housing is just one of their community-focused pieces, and their housing branch owns, manages, and operates low-income, affordable housing. Woohoo! Oh, and I can move it here too. That's what Arnie talked about here. Well, here's the vision. So you've heard the partners, you've heard about the YWCA, you've heard about Rocky Mountain Development Council a little bit, Habitat for Humanity. As we began these discussions with various potential partners in our community, what was finally came to fruition was that there really is this whole continuum among all these partners of moving people from homelessness into home ownership and the equity that eventually gets developed in that process. Our Redeemers already partners with Family Promise here in our building to host homeless families that are working through their programs, getting guidance on getting their foothold, finding employment, and any other support services they need to find housing. The YWCA is doing something similar with women, and often women with small children. In their building right now, they are assisting women who are at risk for homelessness, returning them to sobriety if that is the issue that they are dealing with, offering parenting classes, and they see a need for transitioning those women once they're finished with their program there into something. They can't always find affordable rental housing right now in Helena. So they're looking at some transitional housing that would be that next step, also with supportive services, but affordable rental housing. Rocky Mountain Development Council, as I was about to say, does a great deal of affordable rental housing. Some of those are focused for seniors, and some are for families, and some are mixed. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the future. And then there's Habitat for Humanity, who are assisting families to get into their first home ownership experience. And they help them with homeowner education. They put in sweat equity so they understand their home. Once they move in, they know how to fix things, and they get that foothold and start to build equity in their own home. So the vision really crosses the whole spectrum of housing, affordable housing needs right here to get someone from homelessness into home ownership. And that's what's exciting. It could all happen right here. So I started to talk about who Rocky is. Again, they own and manage their own rental housing. It's all income qualified, so it depends on the property, but it's 60 to 80% of area median income is the qualifying income level, and sometimes rents are based on your income, sometimes they're not. It depends on the housing that they have. So I'm going to give a little, if you can click that video link for me, there's a video introduction to their housing focus.
My name is Liz Mogstead. I am the Program Director for Rocky Mountain Development Council's Affordable Housing Program. Currently, we have 297 affordable apartments in the Tri-County area, and we're in production on another 85. So we develop these affordable properties and then we stay on board and manage them long term. Generally, we serve anywhere from very low to moderate income individuals and families in our community. We have some of our properties are specifically for seniors that are 62 and over, but we have other options for families and people of all ages. Our new Red Alder project that we're building now is going to be for people of all ages. The impact of our housing program is huge in our community. Lack of affordable housing is listed as the #1 or #2 issue in our community in surveys every single year. So we're hoping to make a small dent in that need. And once you're able to provide somebody with a home that they can afford, then it helps everything else out in their lives when they have a place to go home at night. It improves their health and gives people a leg up and gives them ability to potentially have a savings account or invest money and be able to move up and out of poverty. Most of our projects have been made possible with the Housing Tax Credit Program, which is a program that combines federal tax credits with a private investment. So it's a really cool program where in this case, Valley Bank has been an integral part of Red Alder in being that private investor that provides funds for us in order to make this happen. And on Red Alder specifically, we've got a generous donation from Howard Townsend to help with our efforts, and the Washington Foundation actually donated the money for us to build our playground here. So we've had local support as well as our federal assistance that we have. I'm lucky to have a staff that is extremely caring and loves to help people. And I really believe they've stayed in this job and they do what they do because they enjoy making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, that's the introduction to Rocky Mountain Development Council and their housing program. When we get back to the PowerPoint, I can point out the statistics, but that video was shot at the new Red Alder residences, which are currently under construction. And they are just starting to lease up the first half of that project. There are 85 units available there, some one bedroom, some two bedroom, some three bedroom, and I have the statistics on an upcoming slide about the applicants Liz has received. She's got way more applicants than she has units. So there was a tri-county housing study done a few years ago that identified a need for 200 some affordable units in the county. That Red Alder residence, which seems like a huge project, is only meeting about a third of the need, and you can tell by the statistics that Liz is seeing that there's still a great need for affordable rental housing in Helena. Do I have the ability? No. Well, next, I think we'll talk about Habitat for Humanity, and Jacob's here, and I know he doesn't need a slide because he doesn't know what the slide says, so I'll just bring Jacob up. He can talk about what Habitat does and what their role in this partnership might be. Thank you, Jacob.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. Jacob Kuntz. I've been the director of Habitat for Humanity here in Helena for 5 years. We've seen quite a bit of change in that time in Helena in the housing needs. There was already significant housing demand in Helena 5 years ago. That's only increased. And just in the last 3 months, I don't want to stereotype, I'm thinking that a lot of people here are homeowners. Congratulations, I think in the last 3 months, your house values have gone up somewhere between 6 and 8% just in the last 3 months alone. People are buying things sight unseen from points beyond. California, areas where they're trying to get out of cities. We're having house prices that are going above asking price, $10,000 to $20,000 or more in the affordable spectrum. So where we've seen, we were having trouble accessing housing for families that we serve 5 years ago, it's only become more difficult. So we've had to alter what we do, and we found some success in that work. For the first 25 years, the organization built and served 31 families with home ownership. By spring of 2021, we'll have served 26 families with home ownership in a 4-year period. And that has come through a process of leveraging dollars against dollars, and then, quite honestly, asking more of families when we build with them. I currently have a waiting list of 150 applicants. That's 150 individuals and families who are on a waiting list awaiting housing. We are now working with them to increase their financial health. That includes paying down debt, building credit, so that they can afford a mortgage. And when Habitat is no longer in the businesses of holding mortgages in-house, which we used to do at 0 interest, and now we're in the process of better preparing families for the financial requirements of home ownership, we're able to take those dollars and put them against other dollars to maximize the impact to the area. So that's a small piece of what we do, the financial aspect, preparing families for home ownership, building with families, many of whom put in 1,000 to 1,200 hours over the course of a year in building not only their homes, but the homes of their neighbors. Currently, we have 4 homes underway in Helena, another 4 homes underway actually in Red Lodge. Those families get together as a group. They build together as a build unit, and nobody moves in until all the homes are completed. So as part of that, you see, like, we have families 2 to 3 years in a process of building their financial readiness for home ownership, then another year of building not only their house, but the homes of their neighbors. By the time they move in, these are stellar homeowners that do excellent in the communities they serve, wonderful neighbors. The house that I built 4 years ago with Habitat. The first one that Habitat built in quite a long time is down here on the corner of Custer and Benton Avenue. It's right there on the corner. Kelly Moody's now serves on our board. That's an indication of the type of homeowner that we have in the program. Happy to share more, any questions, answer anything that comes up, and share more about the land trust, which we've started to work into as that comes up. So, thanks.
We do have maybe a short video, if Jackie can make that happen.
Unreal at first. It took a while, but once we got started, and now we're close to the end, it's really exciting, where we can see that it's a house where we're going to be living.
Just seeing what we're building, the process, the whole process, and as we're nearing completion, it's really exciting. We're all going to get our nice new houses.
When we put the trusses on the house is for me that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually a house. So to be able to see the roof go on and it just really look like a house was really that moment for me where it became real, I guess.
It was kind of like banging my head against the wall sometimes. It's like at some point it's going to happen, and then when it did happen and all of us jumped in to build my house, it was like the coolest thing because, you know, I had helped all 5 houses, I helped all them, so it was cool to see, you know, they all got my back and they all jumped in and we all did it together.
Now that we're down to the final, and our kitchens are in, our bathrooms are in, you can start planning stuff, you can see it. You see an end, you can tell what was gonna be where, and then once everything went in, you're like, oh, this is my house.
It's definitely harder than I thought. There's a lot more that goes into house building that you would never know unless you were able to be out here doing it. It's tough, but it's fun to see the progress every single day. Every day we would leave the job site, and every week you could see how much further along you were getting, which was really cool.
The physical labor part has been the biggest challenge for me. I'm not as young as I used to be, so I can't move around as like the younger guys here can.
There's challenges daily at this place, man. You just got to take the good with the bad, you know, and like I say, when you have a bad day, you just got to make positive. Next weekend ain't as bad, and you just got to make it so. You can get knocked down, but you get back up again, dude. You got to Chumbawamba.
I really didn't know much about Habitat prior to starting this, other than I knew they built houses and did repairs. Really, we were kind of at the end of our rope. We'd gone to banks. We couldn't get approved for a home loan because of only having one income. It's so hard to make that financial commitment that you have to make when you go into a bank.
Right now we share a room, but he's to the age that he definitely needs his own room. So I saw the Facebook post for Habitat, and it was simple to apply, and then we waited.
It was like being told you just won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes, you know. It was, yeah, just something so far out there, and it was such a great thing to be told you've been selected. I mean, they may as well have been, you know, knocking at the door with balloons saying you just won, you know.
I've seen this house pop up, this one pop up, this one pop up, and this one pop up. So like a little demon on my shoulders, like, dude, it's not gonna happen. With all the misfortune that you've had in life, dude, something's gonna happen. You won't, you know, you won't win. But it's cool to see, you know, that I'm actually gonna win on this deal, and you know, this time I'm not gonna fail.
I never would have thought I would own a brand new house. There's no way that I could have afforded something, and then because it would have had to have been something that would have needed upgrades, and that just was not doable. But maybe now that I know how to do some stuff.
I told my kid that I was gonna begin a new life when this was done, and that's the ultimate goal that she had before she passed away. So that's kind of what I've been pushing myself at since this thing began. You know, life kicks all of us, and it's kicked me many times, and when you get knocked down and get kicked and kicked and kicked again, it's easy to stay down, but you can't. You know, you gotta get up, and you always gotta kick back, and I always will. And that's how you set an example to your kids.
I think the benefit from the house is really more how it will impact my daughter. She's now in the school district that she goes to school in. There are so many kids that live up here that she is in class with and school with. So for me, that is the biggest impact, and that's all I ever wanted from the program, was just a really safe, happy environment for her.
Oh, it's gonna be wonderful. It's clean, it's warm, and it's mine.
Since we've got Jacob here and we were just talking about habitat, maybe we can kind of delve into a little bit of the community land trust model. So this is something I'm fairly new to. Jacob was the one that first introduced me to it. But it's a concept that once you understand it, it has great potential. You realize the potential it has, and especially for a property like this, a community land trust eventually would, in this concept, acquire the property to be developed. And a community land trust holds that land in trust for a given purpose. In this case, it would be for affordable housing. And they can do that with some funding from somewhere. And support from other entities. What the brilliance of the model is that whoever develops on that land owns the footprint of whatever structure they build, but the land itself is owned by the community land trust. All of the owners of structures on that land have a deed restriction on that property for a certain purpose. So in this instance, if Rocky Mountain Development Council did affordable housing units for rental, it would be affordable housing units for rental in perpetuity. If Habitat builds a house and it goes into ownership into a family, that family also engages in a deed restrictive ownership clause. So they do acquire equity over time in that property, but it's capped. And so when they sell, it continues to be affordable long-term. And again, it's the sale of just the structure not the land. Do you want to say some more about that, Jacob? Okay.
Disclosure time, a little bit of vulnerability. Habitat is fantastic at building. We are great at working with families. We have become experts in leveraging financial products, including mortgages, down payment assistance programs, but we are absolutely garbage as a bank. We're terrible at it, quite admittedly so. There are 1,400 affiliates in the United States, and not one of them is any good at it. We're not good bankers, and we're not good mortgage holders. But that's what we were for the first 40 years of the organization's life, was basically a big bank. We'd hold the mortgages in-house at 0 interest, and the families would pay us every month. And of course, over 30 years, if you're getting paid $450 a month, $450 today is not going to be worth $450 in 30 years. So that's part of the leveraging process. When we got out of the business of becoming a bank and got into the business of leveraging financial products, building more houses, and we're going to be developers, that's when we really started to roll. Think about this as a bucket. So Habitat's been spending all this time filling this bucket, trying to find affordable housing, trying to find down payment assistance programs and money to help families afford housing, to basically subsidize building. Well, then the house would be held by a family for a period of time. But then, like everybody else, something happens, you get a job someplace else, the family would want to move, and then the house would come up for sale. And they'd come back to Habitat, and if we weren't in a position with the dollars on the table to buy the house back, then the house went on the market and we lost it. We lost it to the open market. So that bucket basically had a bunch of holes in it. So every time the house came up, and especially in our market where we've seen appreciation of homes between 7 and 10% in the families that we serve, which is really that $150,000, which really doesn't exist, to $250,000 range. We're seeing incredible increases, especially in the speculation market among folks who are looking for rentals. So speculators coming in, buying houses out, and then renting them out. So those prices were quickly going out of range, and we weren't able to get those houses back. So all these homes that were developed, a lot of them we lost to the market. So the land trust makes it possible for us to hold those and make housing permanently affordable. So every investment that goes into one house is held permanently in trust, so that generations of families can benefit from that home, the dollars that went into building that home, the volunteer labor that went into building that home. But each family does benefit individually in that home in building equity, just like any other homeowner. It's just reduced and it's capped. So it's capped to 1.5% of the value of the home every year, instead of the 7 to 8 and 10 in some cases. So that's what the land trust does. When the home comes up for sale, there's an automatic resale price. There's no appraisals necessary. There may not even need to be a realtor, and Habitat doesn't necessarily have to be involved. It goes on the market at that predetermined price. The family sells it, and the next family has to meet the income requirements. And that home then is serving generations of families rather than just one. So that's a snapshot. Many people wonder why we're building in Red Lodge. Well, land. People are going to ask that all the time. Why are you building a Red Lodge? Can't find land in Helena. Struggle to find it. We've been, beating our heads against a wall trying to find land. We're knocking on every door out there trying to find affordable land, and it's gone from, $25,000, then it was $35,000 and $45,000. Well, the average piece of land out there is $85,000 right now. It's gone up from there. So we keep on knocking on the doors to try to find affordable land. We're making some inroads on that. We're going to be able to build more houses coming in the future. And when we do, we want to know that every investment that goes into making homes affordable are going to be felt by generations of families. So it becomes an investment model, social investment, where you have a compound benefit from every dollar, every hour put in by a volunteer, to benefit both the families that are living in the homes, but also the next families that are going to be owning those homes in the future. So Yes. Yes, sir.
So, a natural question would be for people who live around this.
Right.
How does keeping the land affordable over here affect property values over here?
The question is, would a land trust affect property values? And the answer to that is no. Land and the units are valued at a fee simple appraisal process. So if you went to go sell your house and you agreed on a price with a buyer, the appraiser had to come in, they determined the value of the home. The homes that we develop are the same mechanism is used. So the value of the home is no different than the house down the street. It's just the transaction is different. So the homes are valued like any home in the area because it's evaluated with a fee simple appraisal process is the short answer to that. That's a great question because there's this idea of if we're building homes over here for $150,000, which I'm doing in Red Lodge, is it going to affect the homes that are right across the street that actually aren't quite as nice? Sorry, a little plug. Which are valued at $270,000. And no, it's not the case. We had an appraisal done before we actually started the project, and our homes appraised above the value of those houses. So it's just a different model. Nobody would ever know which house is in a land trust. In fact, I could go throughout a neighborhood, and we'd have a mixed income neighborhood, and we'd be able to choose. We'll take this lot and that lot and this lot, and those are going to go into the land trust. The rest of them are going to be sold at market value, which is what Habitat wants. You know, we don't want to have an entire neighborhood just all in one income category. We like to mix it up that way. But the neighbors would have no idea which house is which is what we want. We don't want anybody to ever know which house is the Habitat house. Unfortunately, in the past with Habitat, there's been a little bit of that. We've changed that over the next few years. If you drive into a neighborhood, you're not able to tell unless you can remember that the house down the street, Kelly's house, was had a Habitat sign on it, a bunch of volunteers hanging off it over time. You'd have no idea. The quality and the workmanship and the value of that house equals or exceeds those in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Jacob. I knew he would have a better explanation than I would, so thank you very much for that. We do have a video about the YWCA. If you can click. Oh, that's Habitat. Sorry. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
I was struggling with homelessness with my 5 children and struggling through addiction and alcoholism, and needed to further my recovery and have more support for my mental health and my sobriety. If the YWCA didn't exist, I would not have my children. I would still be homeless and on the streets and in the midst of my addiction and depression and just spiraling down out of control.
So in the summer of 2017, I was driving intoxicated with my son and was pulled over. I was facing prison and child felony endangerment charges. I decided to take the Circle of Security class because I felt like a really bad mom in that moment, you know, and I hadn't been told to take it yet, but I figured I should probably take some parenting classes. So I started doing that, and
the woman who was teaching the class talked to me about maybe living at the YWCA. And I said, how do you do that? And she helped set me up with all of the paperwork, and on August 8th of 2017, we moved in. We had a really good experience while living here. Gavin would run laps in the kitchen, and I was so terrified because he's high energy, and I was like, oh no, he's gonna annoy everyone. And all the girls were like putting their hands out, like, high five, buddy, do another one, and just, you know, it was a really supportive, great place to raise my son for a year and to get on our feet.
My hopes for the future are to better stabilize and support me and my 5 children, and providing financial and emotional and mental support for them from everything I've learned here at the YWCA.
If you really want it, if you're really willing to change your life, like, it'll do it, you know? And so I think just being able to persevere and be able to just know that you're not alone has helped in my recovery and in my sobriety and in my parenting. You know, I get to be the mom that I thought I was, or that I wanted to be, that I pretended to be. Today I get to be that mom, and that's part of what the YWCA gave to me.
What I want people to know about me is that I'm a survivor.
If the YWCA didn't exist, I wouldn't be sober today.
The biggest thing I've learned at the YWCA is self-compassion.
This program saved my family, it saved my life. I'm so grateful for every donation.
The environment at the YWCA is the safest I have felt in years.
It's heartbreaking to think of a world where the YWCA doesn't exist, because I wouldn't be here.
So obviously the Y is meeting a critical need of keeping women and children together and facilitating changes in their lives to support them through homelessness and beyond. They're seeing a critical need once women have been through their initial program in their downtown facility to assist them with transitional housing after that before they can find secure, affordable housing for themselves. The director of the Y is unable to be here tonight, but we do have 2 members of their board here. If there are specific questions, we can address those. And if not, we will have a question and answer time at the end here. But right now, what that transitional housing component is looking like, again, all of this is initial planning work, but it's looking like about a 12-unit apartment building. Again, that would be staffed by Y staff and would still surround those women with supportive services until they're ready to move out. It's a 1 to 2 year sort of time frame living arrangement. So this is Trust Montana. This is the Community Land Trust that Jacob spoke about. Hopefully that explanation is enough for you to understand what they do. They are located in Missoula, and they have done other projects similar to this. And I actually did see some homes in Missoula that were built under this Community Land Trust model. And again, the point of that is to keep them affordable long-term. So our last partner here is the City of Helena. Again, like I said, the Development Committee realized that we could not do this on our own. Anything of this scale requires a great deal of planning effort, research, vetting of all the financials to see if it works. It's just a lot of effort, and we knew we needed partners. All of these partners have interest in a portion of this land, but not interest in the whole land. But we feel like if we start working together, we can come up with a development plan that is suitable to all the partners, but it requires funding. So the Community Development Block Grant is an opportunity for us to apply for funding to work through this planning process. CDBG can only be applied for by municipality, and so we reached out to the city to find whether there was interest in this, and there has been initial interest expressed. So I just want to point out some of the things that the city has done that shows support in the affordable housing region. They do have, their city growth policy supports affordable housing. The city commission, just in the last year, voted to support developers of affordable housing. If you meet the requirements, you can apply for fee waivers on your building permits, so there's that incentive. And if anybody saw the article in the paper this week, there is discussion about starting an affordable housing trust fund. And we have Sharon Haugen here, the Director of Community Development. If there are any questions moving forward about what the city's role in this would be. Don't have a big role? You write the grant though, right? So again, our application that we would write would be for $50,000. That's the maximum CDBG planning grant application. We feel like this is of a scale that warrants that maximum request. And after this slide, I'll get to some of the things that might cover. But in terms of what this means for our church, I think Arnie did a great introduction to how this fits into the missional goals of the church. But if you think of all of the mission opportunities that would exist if we were surrounded by housing here, there's a lot of potential there. I mean, we've talked about growth of our own preschool here. Think of the number of new kids that would be running around the block here. There would be seniors to serve. There would be youth programs to develop. There's a great deal of excitement when we start to talk about shared facilities. When we get back to being able to be together and share facilities, think of opportunities for the growth in our own youth program and preschool and senior services. So things that a planning grant might pay for would be appraisal of the land, setting up partnership agreements. We've got a lot of partners here. All of those partners will need to come to the table with what their priorities, what their needs are, and agreements will have to be established. There will be infrastructure planning. We'll have to find out what kind of water and sewer services we can support that can support the housing here. There will have to be community outreach. CDBG will require that we do that, and we will want to do that. There will be public meetings with the community at large. There will be congregational meetings. This congregation needs to decide how much land they want to retain for future development. That'll all be part of that planning process. And hopefully out of that is developed a master plan and some conceptual architectural plans so that people can see the vision of what's possible here. Again, it's a long process, but hopefully what comes out of it spurs the next step. So the next step would be finding funding. All of these partners are expert at finding funding, and we will all have to be playing a part in that. So this is going to be a long process. Even if we get a planning grant, the planning process will take some time, the funding process will take some time. I think that is what one of the critical pieces that the church will be asked for is patience. And I feel like that's one of the things that we can offer these partners. Oftentimes, when an opportunity comes up to find land, it's not available for long enough for them to secure funding and to see that to fruition. So one thing that the church can do is be a partner in that waiting process. With that, I think we will entertain any questions, and then I'll turn it over to Craig for the procedural part of the vote. But if there are questions, we have a mic up here that we can hand to you. If you just raise a hand. And online, you can also raise your hand. You have a question online? Okay. No. Do you want to come up?
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Pastor Kendra. I serve here at Our Redeemers, and I've been monitoring the live stream chat. This is something we made available to community members and congregational members to participate remotely. I just received a question from Sarah Swingley. The question is, will the community members surrounding the church who are not members have a say in what is developed?
So yes, Community Development Block Grant, as I said, will require that we have community meetings, and that eventually when you apply for, so CDBG will also provide capital funding grants. Part of their planning grant is to get you in line for a funding of a capital grant. They want to see projects funded that have community support. So if you don't do community meetings and you propose something that the community doesn't want, it's going to show up in your application. So yes, this will be a community process. There will be many opportunities for the congregation and the larger neighborhood here to be involved in what happens. Are there other questions?
Is the grant, the planning grant, is that like a matching grant where the church would have to put in money, or is it like a 100% grant where we wouldn't have to match every dollar spent?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's a 1 to 3 matching grant. So as we request $50,000, they will ask that we match that with about $16,700. Again, there's 4 or 5 partners involved in this, and so we anticipate that matching will be shared among those partners. Another online question?
This question from Ingrid Childress: by going into this planning grant application, does that commit our Redeemers to developing housing with the given partners?
So the planning grant will be funding, like I said, a process, and they understand that there's some risk in funding planning because it doesn't always come to fruition. And we are early on in these discussions with partners, so we can't fully know where that's going to go. At this point, the church is being asked to move forward in good faith, that yes, if what we expect and what all these partners expect going forward continues to be beneficial to all partners, we are not going to put anything in the way of that. So it's a commitment, yes, but we're not fully committed because there's no funding to fully commit to the full capital improvement at this point. Another one.
This one from Gwendolyn Aldrich: what specific types of housing is in the vision? All 3 types?
So yes, at this point, I would say the 3 types are a transitional housing component, affordable rental housing, and affordable homeowner single home, well, wouldn't have to be single home occupied homes, but owner occupied homes. Those could be duplexes or multiplexes. Rocky Mountain Development Council has done a variety of developments, and so I'm not quite sure what they would propose here. And again, it's going to have to be suitable to the neighborhood. The Red Alder residences that are going in right now are a mix of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Those are on the corner of Henderson and Brady. I imagine that what gets proposed is something that fits the scale of the neighborhood and has some variety to it. But yes, it would have those three components at this point: transitional housing, rental housing, and owner-occupied housing. Any other questions? Kendra's got lots. Oh. Yeah.
Just to address that really quick, you know, a lot of times when we think about, well, we say affordable housing, and there was, somebody coined the term workforce housing at some point, and it seems like no matter what you say, then you say housing project, it has connotations to it. What we say is, you know, houses that people can afford. And the old way of doing things was kind of like the Soviet tenement block, kind of the giant, faceless veneer. That's not the right way to develop housing for people. You know, the whole goal of this, all of these organizations, is to elevate people. The last thing we want to do are put people in a position where the type of housing that they're in doesn't inspire ownership, pride. And so whatever's developed here has to fit the character of the neighborhood to make sure that it fits, so that you can't tell the difference between one type of housing and another. That's the last thing that we want to do as an organization. I know these other organizations that we work with work off that same philosophy of, in everything that we do, seeking to elevate people out of a cycle of poverty into a place where they can access the American dream, which was to prosper if you put your hand and your mind and your labor to that. So just so you're aware of that, whenever we go into any project, it always involves making sure that it doesn't denigrate the people who are living there. So. Yeah.
So yes, that's part of infrastructure planning that would be part of this planning process. I was involved in the Red Alder residences. I know we had to do a traffic study there. I imagine something similar would happen here. Well, I think what we'd be advocating for here is a neighborhood with variety. And I think that, again, the scale of development is important, the scale of the actual structures that it fits, what's surrounding it. But I do believe that a mixed income neighborhood benefits all.
This question from Craig Leakey. If grant was obtained, what is the actual timeline then to raise required funding for actual development?
So I believe the planning grant, they like to maybe Sharon can help me. They like to have those complete in a year. Is that kind of the time frame? Come on up here. Come on up.
To remind everybody, my name is Sharon Hagen. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Helena. And let me say first, I think this is an exciting project when you look at the potential of three very strong partners in the community: Habitat for Humanity, Rocky Mountain Development Council, and the YWCA, and certainly the most important partner would be Our Redeemer's Church. To answer the question, I think what the question was, we would have to have identified and the match and had the match committed at the time of the grant application. But for the longer term, to secure the funds for the infrastructure, for the purchase of the land, for all those things, that would be part of the grant planning process. And we would have to have those funds committed before we start breaking ground. And can I tell you when ground would be broken if we were successful in this planning grant? Probably not. But it would take all our partners working together. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it certainly always is a challenge. But if we come in all committed, I think there's a lot of sources who would be very interested in a project similar to this.
Thank you. Another question from Gwendolyn Aldrich. This sounds many housing units in what seems to be a small space. How many units are you considering building? Can you detail the borders of the area to be developed?
That is a question I cannot answer. That's what the planning process is for. To find out what's suitable, what fits, what's the right scale, how many units can we serve, what's the impact to the traffic. All of that is part of the planning process. There was a question here in person too, if we could. Okay, go right ahead. So this kind of a process and project would probably require some rezoning, and those details would have to be worked out with the city. Typically, you can't rezone to something that's not already an adjacent zone. So I think it would probably have to be compliant with a zone that is adjacent to our property. So that may put a cap on it at a fourplex or a threeplex. I just don't know at this point.
This question is from Ingrid Childress. Do our partners envision green space beyond a playground? That is community garden, free-flowing stream, meadowlark, prairie.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. This question is from Ingrid Childress. Do our partners envision green space beyond a playground? That is community garden, free-flowing stream, meadowlark, prairie. Yes, I hope so.
The community garden was one of the pieces I forgot to mention in ways that our Redeemers might be able to serve this larger neighborhood moving forward. We already have a community garden established, and the hope is that would grow. Yes, I think walking paths through the property, green space, we've got some wetlands to preserve. Again, that's all part of the planning process. I understand online people are having some trouble hearing you, Kendra, in that other mic. So if there are other questions, we might have you come up here. Okay. Are there other questions? If not, I'll turn this over to Craig.
Well, thank you for the terrific questions, and Jacob, Sharon, Ann, Kim, thank you for being here. We appreciate it very, very much. So we're going to take a vote. Unless there are any further questions, we're going to take a vote, and the voting process, and where's Pastor Ernie? There you are. Please correct me if I'm wrong here. We have members of the congregation have been given a ballot, a precisely cut piece of paper. Thank you, Susan. No, we have members of the congregation were each given a slip of paper, and in my opinion, the vote is either yes or no. It's a question of do you, as a member of this congregation, believe that our Redeemer's Lutheran Church move forward as a partner with the city, Rocky Mountain Development Council, Habitat for Humanity, and the YWCA, and Trust Montana, to explore the possibilities of what was discussed here tonight. It really is that simple. Yes or no? Yes, if we have a majority, and it is a simple majority, if the answer is yes, then we will convey that to Sharon, and she can take that to I would assume, the City Commission. And then the City Commission can make the decision as to whether or not that they would sponsor a CDBG application on behalf of this project. And I think it's important, I think you may have touched on this, Gretchen, the city can only sponsor one application at a time. And I've been to the needs assessment hearings that Sharon holds, and the demand for these funds is great. So having the support, I would imagine, is very important to the City Commission. For our people who could not join us tonight for whatever reason, you could stop by the church office sometime this week and give your ballot to Lori. Is that okay? Between 9 and noon, Monday through Friday. Or you could simply mail it in. Now, I believe we set the deadline to vote for Thursday at 5 o'clock, right, Pastor Ernie? Okay. So for those of you joining online, members of the congregation, please either drop them off to Lori or put them in the mail so that we have them by this Thursday. All right? Any questions about that? Yes? Yes, we do have the funding for that. Yes, the question was, and it was a good question, is our Redeemer's portion of the match required for the CDBG grant in our budget? And the answer to that is yes, we do have the funding. Any other questions? All right. How are we going to collect the ballots? Just drop them off at the back. We have Lori with the green bucket, and just drop your ballots at the back. And are we going to count them here tonight and let people know? No, we're not? Okay. Well, we'll let that be known to everyone at next Sunday's service, which of course is also available online, and again next Sunday will be held outdoors. Pastor Kender, did you want to say a prayer? Yeah, slave to social media. I just want to add about the public participation process. I've been involved with community development for the better part of 20 years, and every successful project has had a vigorous community engagement process. Not just because the funding agencies want to see that, and Gretchen's absolutely right, they do, but because it's just the right thing to do. And for our neighbors to the north and west of us, or south of us, excuse me, you will have ample opportunity to engage in this discussion if you want to. And we will keep you in the loop with what's going on with this project. So, Pastor Kendra?
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are a God of community and a God of relationship. We pray that you be with us now as we discern your calling to us, as we consider being part of the Helena community in this way. May you guide our discernment and give us wisdom for knowing how you are calling us and leading us. This all we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
So, thank you all very much for being here. Again, Kim and Jacob, Sharon, thank you so very much. Gretchen, wonderful job, thank you. And Jackie, good job back there. Pastor Arnie, is that it? I thought I heard somebody say we had a question, so. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you so much.